Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So, it's been a really busy week in the gaming world. Of course, we do have the Tokyo Game Show taking place, so there's going to be news coming out of there. But beyond that, there's been some big things happen this week, and really that continues on even today. Yes, some legendary franchises that fans have been wanting to return for such a long time might actually be making a comeback after all, according to a new report that's went up online. And it does seem like there's a lot of sources to this one, so this might actually be happening. Now, we're also starting to hear about a big Xbox reveal that could be happening sometime here soon. So we're going to go over that as well, and in fact, we're actually going to be kicking today's episode off with a pretty big announcement being Monster Hunter Rise for PC. Now, we have known about this one for longer than what we should have because this one did leak out online quite a long time ago. But yes, it is now official. Monster Hunter Rise will be making its way to Steam early in 2022. And this is pretty exciting because Monster Hunter Rise is a great overall game. It's probably one of the better games that's released in 2021. And Monster Hunter is just such a big franchise, and it has a big fan base over on PC. And that is one of the things about Monster Hunter Rise. This game artistically looks really good on the Nintendo Switch, but some fans still believe that this game is being held back by that Switch hardware. And that's kind of where this PC version is going to come in, because this is going to give this game a pretty nice little graphical boost here. They do say that the Steam version will support 4K resolution, high-res textures, uncapped frame rates, optimized keyboard and mouse controls, voice chat, and ultra-wide 21:9 display support. So you are going to get a nice little graphical boost here that's going to combine the pleasing art style for Monster Hunter Rise with just raw visual power. If you have been waiting for that PC version though, Monster Hunter Rise will be available starting January 12th of 2022. Unfortunately, it does miss that holiday period here, but the good news is that there will also be a demo that arrives on October 13th, giving players an early look for Monster Hunter Rise on Steam. Next up, we got some more information on that Bluepoint PlayStation acquisition. This is something that we talked a lot about yesterday, and I did mention that I don't think Bluepoint was simply acquired for just remakes and remasters alone. They did actually suggest in the past that they wanted to work on their own original content, so I figured that that was one of the reasons PlayStation went ahead and acquired them. And well, lo and behold, that is exactly what's happening. It has now been revealed, thanks to IGN, that they are working on an original project. If you take a look here, this is what Bluepoint had to say. Our next project, we're working on original content right now. We can't talk about what that is, but that's the next step in the evolution for us. The transition from remasters to remakes was to test ourselves and push ourselves harder for the next step. Our team is a very highly experienced team. The average experience among most people is about 15 years, and all of them come from original development. It's not like we're a bunch of developers that got trained up on making remasters and remakes. We have that original game development mindset in our hearts, and that's what we're now finally ready, with the support of Sony to push forward and show what we can do and show what PlayStation can do. So there you have it. Bluepoint's next game will indeed be a completely original game. So if you were kind of hoping that they would remake games like Legends or Dragoon, well, unfortunately, that's just not going to happen anytime soon. However, it will be really interesting to see them work on their own original project here. We know that they're a very talented team, and they can make some beautiful looking games, and we saw that with Shadow of the Colossus remake as well as the Demon's Souls remake, but it's completely different working on your own original game. You no longer have that source material to work from, and because of that, it's going to take a little bit longer to make their next game. But, with the talent behind the studio, I will be really excited to see what they come up with here. And for that matter, I do wonder if it's going to be their own original IP, or are they going to be working from PlayStation franchises? That is technically possible. They could work on an existing franchise. They do have experience with both Demon's Souls as well as Uncharted, so maybe they make a new Uncharted or Demon's Souls game. Now, I'm just simply speculating here, but I really am excited to see what Bluepoint Games does next. This is a talented studio, and I would say that they're probably a bit of a dark horse for PlayStation this generation. We know that they're talented, so let's see what they can do with their own original content. Now, for this next topic, we got quite a bit of information to go over here, because according to Video Game Chronicles, Konami might be bringing back some of their legendary franchises this generation in a big way. Now, this is legitimately very exciting stuff because Konami has some big franchises that unfortunately we haven't seen for a while. Konami has taken a bit of a back seat when it comes to AAA development here in the last decade or so, it feels. And well, according to this report, it looks like Konami is making a big comeback this generation. So yeah, apparently they plan on bringing back 3 of their biggest franchises, being Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid, as well as Silent Hill. Now, we've been hearing plenty of rumors about a new Silent Hill game in development, as well as Metal Gear Solid Remake, but now we've gotten some more specifics with this report, and it sounds like we might start to officially hear about these games in 2022. This will include a new Castlevania game that's being described as a reimagination. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, because are they going to be reimagining one of the classic Castlevania games that are 2D, or are they going to go with one of the more modern 3D Castlevania games? That kind of remains to be seen, but I think with the explosion of Metroidvanias just in general over the last couple years, it's the perfect time to bring back Castlevania, and that's really regardless of whether it's 2D or 3D. I mean, this is a big, well-known franchise. It's been having success over on Netflix. That new Game Boy Advance collection, fans seem to be absolutely loving that, and yeah, we need a completely new game here, and even if it is a reimagination, yeah, I'm all for that. Let's bring back Castlevania, so hopefully we do hear about this one sometime in 2022. Truthfully, though, I would kind of like to see a new 2D Castlevania. We're seeing that this year with Metroid Dread and the excitement around that, and maybe we could get similar excitement with a new 2D Castlevania game as well. The big one here, though, is Metal Gear Solid. We did get some very specific details about what's happening with Metal Gear Solid, and interestingly enough, this is not a remake of the first game, apparently. Every time that we've heard about a Metal Gear Solid remake, it was always imagined that it would probably be Metal Gear Solid 1, which I still think would probably make the most sense, but VGC's claiming that from what they've heard, it's actually going to be Metal Gear Solid 3 instead. Now, this is an obvious fan favorite, and a lot of people consider it to be the best Metal Gear Solid game to date, so I think it could be very successful if done right. Now, I still do think it's a little strange that they would remake Metal Gear Solid 3 over Metal Gear Solid 1, just because I do think that the first game needs a remake more. I personally think that you can kind of go back and play Metal Gear Solid 3 still and enjoy it, because it did age pretty well, and it does have plenty of remasters already available. As for Metal Gear Solid 1, I just feel like it has much more potential, because you could take that old school gameplay and then really bring it to the modern era of games by just completely remaking it from top to bottom. We actually saw Capcom do that with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. These games played in a completely different perspective than the original Resident Evil games, and the remakes were really phenomenal, and that's what I kind of imagined with a Metal Gear Solid 1 remake. Now, at the same time, though, that's obviously going to require a lot more work, and with Metal Gear Solid 3, you're not going to have to change near as much, so I'm sure that probably plays into the hand of remaking Metal Gear Solid 3 rather than Metal Gear Solid 1. Even with that, though, I mean, Metal Gear Solid 3, like I said before, is an obvious fan favorite, and you can do a lot with this game as well. And I think if done right, I mean, you can make a true masterpiece here, just like the original Metal Gear Solid 3. One interesting thing about this report, though, is that we now have a specific developer that's apparently working on this Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, and that is Virtuous. Virtuous is a pretty big support studio that's worked on games like Uncharted 4 and Horizon Zero Dawn. They've also ported several Switch titles such as Dark Souls Remaster, The Outer Worlds, and the BioShock collection. But the thing about this is that previously there was always this rumor going around that Bluepoint Games was actually working on a Metal Gear Solid remake, and well, based off of this, that's now been proven to be false. This instead is being handled by Virtuous, and this is good news for anybody hoping that this game will be a multi-platform release. With Virtuous working on this has a very good chance of being available on Xbox, PC, as well as PlayStation. For those wanting Metal Gear Solid 1, though, VGC does claim that Konami will be doing remasters of the classics before the bigger release, so there is that. Now, VGC did also lightly brush up on the reports that Silent Hills is also in development. We've already talked a lot about this in the past, so I'm not going to talk about it too much today, but they did once again say that multiple Silent Hills games are in development. We don't really know too much about these games just yet, but apparently they are being handled by various external development studios, and they do say that one of these projects was outsourced to a prominent Japanese developer earlier this year. Again, they do say that we should probably start to hear about this sometime in 2022, so fans of any of these franchises, I know I'm a big Metal Gear Solid fan myself, have a lot to look forward to next year. Speaking of games that I'm a big fan of, Hellblade. I've quite often on this channel mentioned that is one of my favorite single-player story-driven games that released last generation. So I'm pretty incredibly excited for Hellblade 2. But you know, the thing about Hellblade 2 is that we haven't really seen much about this game. We just know that it exists. But, well, that actually might be changing sometime here soon because according to Jeff Grubb, which has done a great job with leaking information over the last year, he has become a pretty reliable insider, and he claims that Hellblade 2, as well as Avowed, might actually be at the Game Awards this year. Of course, Xbox is no strangers to making big announcements at the Game Awards. This is where they revealed the Xbox Series X, Perfect Dark, as well as Hellblade 2. So it would kind of make sense for them to make some big announcements at this Game Awards once again. And, well, Hellblade 2, that would be a huge reveal if we finally get to see some gameplay or what this game exactly is about. Let's go check out what Jeff Grubb had to say, though, on the Defining Duke podcast. He was asked about Hellblade 2, and he responded by saying, "I think Hellblade 2 was kind of the plan as well, but we'll see if that actually happens. They were thinking about doing the thing that they had after E3 with Paris. They were thinking about putting that in the show, but we're like, no, that's too much for your stuff, so we'll just save that and then we'll do something later in the year. Probably the Game Awards. That's going to be the plan. We'll see. Those plans could change." So, I mean, based off of what he's saying here, I mean, yes, it sounds very possible that Hellblade 2 will show up at the Game Awards, which, again, does make sense. The Game Awards is one of the biggest shows of the entire year, and Xbox, I mean, they're not going to want to skip out on a big event like that. They're going to have something there. It's really more of what are they going to show rather than if they're going to show something. But yeah, based off of what Jeff Grubb is saying here, it sounds like they were considering showing Hellblade 2 earlier this year, but might have held it back until the Game Awards. And I mean, this almost sounds identical to what happened with Perfect Dark last year. There was a lot of reports last year that Perfect Dark was going to show up at Gamescom, and then it didn't, and then we found out that they held that off until, of course, the Game Awards. So Xbox has done things like this in the past, but, you know, interestingly enough, he does also add that Avowed might show up at this event as well. Now, he does say that it's unlikely, but there still is a small chance that Obsidian could show off Avowed as well, and this is another game, I mean, we really know next to nothing about this. We know that it's set in the same world as Pillars of Eternity, which is a beloved RPG and probably one of the better RPGs that's released in the last decade. You know, this is something that Obsidian does a great job at. But we want to see the gameplay because based off of that teaser, it does look like this is going to be a first-person RPG, similar to something like Skyrim. So Skyrim meets Pillars of Eternity. I mean, on paper, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And now we just want to see it in action. And maybe the Game Awards will be that place. I mean, if they show off both Hellblade 2 as well as Avowed, yeah, this could be a big event for Xbox. At the very least, the Game Awards just suddenly got much more exciting. Moving on, we got an update on that quote-unquote Nintendo Switch Pro. Bloomberg did post a big report yesterday claiming that several developers had a 4K development kit for the Nintendo Switch. And specifically, they did mention one of these developers being Zynga. And I did point out in yesterday's episode that I found that to be interesting because a lot of the times when it comes to these reports, you don't specifically name your sources, but for whatever reason, Bloomberg did specifically name Zynga. They didn't name the other 10 sources for their information, which was really odd, and I feel like that this just kind of put Zynga in a weird predicament, because there's a reason that you make your sources anonymous, because now Zynga's getting all of these questions about, well, did you actually get this 4K development kit or not? And Nintendo's kind of looking at Zynga because if they did indeed give them this 4K development kit, well, they're more than likely under NDA, and with Bloomberg outing them, I mean, yeah, Nintendo's going to blacklist them in the future. So this is just not a good look for Zynga here, and, well, they came out and did respond to this rumor by saying this. To clarify, Zynga does not have a 4K developer kit from Nintendo. So they're based off of what Zynga is saying. They're practically saying that Bloomberg lied about this whole situation. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true or if Zynga is just trying to protect themselves because they very well could have been under NDA. It's kind of hard to say, but this whole rumor has just kind of blown up in Bloomberg's face. They really should not have brought up Zynga at all in that initial report. I'm just going to kind of repeat what I said yesterday, though. If this 4K Switch device does indeed exist, then great. But I don't want to look too into it right now because, I mean, we've been hearing about this device for years. It hasn't happened to this point. And, you know, now I'm just kind of in that mindset of if it happens, great. If it doesn't, then fine, so be it. I think we're kind of getting to that point. I mean, you know, if a device releases next year, that's 5 years into the generation. I think we're kind of getting to the point that maybe we're thinking more about the Nintendo Switch successor, you know, the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Super Switch, as you will. So I very well could see the Switch OLED, the standard Switch, and the Switch Lite being the devices that you can get for this generation for the foreseeable future. Maybe they do introduce a mid-generation refresh next year, or maybe they don't. I'm just going to kind of wait it out and see what happens, but interestingly enough, a 4K AI upscaling patent did appear online regarding the Nintendo Switch, so maybe that amounts to be something. I think for now, though, we're just kind of in that wait-and-see mode. On to the poll of the day, though. It is now officially October, and this is something that I like to do every month, where I ask you all which game you're most looking forward to releasing in that specific month. And for the month of October, this one is an insanely close poll here, with Far Cry 6, Metroid Dread, and Back 4 Blood all battling it out for that #1 spot. As of this recording, Far Cry 6 has 28% of the votes, Metroid Dread 27%, Back 4 Blood at 28%, Guardians of the Galaxy at 10%, and then Other is 7%. So yeah, this is the closest poll that I have put together so far, and I think it just kind of shows you how good the month of October really is. Obviously, Far Cry is a very popular series, and with the introduction of Giancarlo Esposito, I will be interested to see how he plays as a villain in the Far Cry franchise. That's obviously a big one, and it will be releasing October 7th. Back 4 Blood, this is yet another multi-platform game here, but this one will actually be launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. So this is a big Xbox Game Pass release, and it is heavily inspired by Left 4 Dead, and really it's a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. And fans have been wanting Valve to make Left 4 Dead 3 for years and years, but, you know, we're still not entirely sure if Valve can count to 3, but luckily we do have Back 4 Blood here, and it's looking really good so far. Now, as for Metroid Dread here, I'm really impressed that this one ranked as high as it did, just because this is the lone exclusive on this list. And to see it still get 27% of the votes despite it being a Nintendo Switch exclusive, yeah, that is very impressive. I'm just going to go ahead and once again say it. Yes, Metroid Dread, I still do believe that this will be the best-selling Metroid game ever when all is said and done, or at least until Metroid Prime 4 releases. It's so good to finally see this franchise come back, and truthfully, that right there is the one that I am most excited for personally. Regardless, it looks like it's going to be a good month for October, and it seems like everybody has something to look forward to throughout the month. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.